easy things to sell because in terms of the film market, but you don't hardly walk in those film markets. You don't really see a lot of the what we see kind of transpire in the film festivals or the things that the publications like IndieWire or something might write about in about a indie film darling or something that came out of the Sundance Film Labs and things like that. Those are part again of that other subset world of the Indie Spirit Award. And then we have everybody else. That's what I used to call it the Uber independent filmmaker or the micro budget filmmaker, but it's the proliferation of the technology that's available to us means that all of us are making film content now. So the business model that we work in can be different. But thank goodness for companies like Distributor, Bitmax, these aggregation companies that allow the democracy for all this content to get up onto all these different platforms in terms of the platforms that we buy films and rent films now. Amazon, iTunes, we're used to seeing all those different platforms, but you can get your content on those platforms, your movie on those platforms. And if you work the system a little bit, you might be able to, as just an independent who didn't go through a distribution company or a sales agent and did it yourself, working with an aggregation company, and had some other back-end marketing campaign going on and a lot of pre-sales campaign going on, you could, for the first week, be paired alongside a studio movie that was coming out the same week. We've seen it happen a few times, and we could talk a little bit about that. But with that said, it's sort of taking at heart what your film is and what are the marketing options for you in terms of the marketplace options. Like, where does this go to? Is it does it fit the mold of a sales agent that grabs your film amongst a bunch of other films and they're trying to sell it to all the different international territories? Does that make sense? If that doesn't make sense, then does it make more sense to just work with an aggregation company that is not a distribution company? They are just there to do quality assurance of your technical file to make sure that it fits the different platforms, iTunes, Amazon, Hulu, and so on. Netflix is a different beast. Netflix is their own self-contained world that now they just hired somebody who just a woman who just is going to head up the independent film acquisition. So we'll see what Netflix does with that. Okay, with all that said, what do you think with your film? What kind of feedback have you gotten, or what's your gut tell you, like where it fits in the marketplace?
Well, it's interesting because once we published our trailer, which we published on Mother's Day, we had several different sales companies that reached out to us and said, hey, this film, it looks like it's something new. People aren't doing this. No one's really done it before. You have a good cast. It looks like the production quality was really good, and wanted us to sign with them. So we did meet with several different sales companies, and we did screen the actual film with them, like the fine cut or something at that point. Mm-hmm. And what I found interesting was when I asked them how they would actually help us sell the film, like what was some of their ideas for a unique marketing campaign, or like basically what distinguishes one sales company from another, to figure out which one is the best fit for us. None of them were able to articulate what the plan would be, and they kind of all fell back on, well, once you sign with us, we'll look at the film and come up with a plan. So, I mean, it just seems to work a little backwards, because for me, choosing which one to go with, I have to know what makes them unique, what makes them better than the other choices out there. So I ended up taking a step back from the sales companies, and I ended up in a conversation with a distribution company who also saw the film and wanted us to work with them. Now, the distribution company ended up telling me in our first meeting that, listen, we actually don't acquire films that are under $25 million, the budget. So, but what we'd like to do is have you join our turnkey kind of marketing solution, which is basically us paying an upfront fee and having access to all of their contacts and relationships and, negotiating power. And they would, approach the Netflix, the Amazon, the Hulu, the Vudu, the Crackle, all of them. And I will say, at first I thought an upfront fee, you know what? I've listened to Film Trooper. They say stay away from upfront fees. So, my spidey sense went up there, but they were the only ones who were able to actually tell me what they would do with the film, who they would bring it to, why they would bring it to that company or platform. They even told me what they thought we could, kind of the ask prices would be and what they would settle with. And they were very generous with explaining what they would do with the film. So I was very, I considered them, and I'm still actually considering working with them. And then it became a question of, so if I'm paying an upfront fee, what other companies out there have this kind of marketing platform, and are they charging an upfront fee, and what could that upfront fee be? So then I was starting to look at other companies like Distribber, who has an upfront fee, but it's a much smaller upfront fee. And I went back to that distribution company and said, hey, what makes you better than Distribber? And or Bitmax or one of them.
Yeah.
And they said to me, well, because of our relationships. And they gave me some great examples of how they could use their relationships as a negotiating chip to get a better deal in the long run. So to answer your question in a not very short form,
no,
I have no idea which one is the best home or which one is the best strategy to get the film sold and to get the film seen as much as possible.
Yeah, when you shared me, we're not going to mention the studio on this because on this, I know everybody's like, wait, I need to know the studio. It's just simply because you're in possible negotiations with them, and the idea it's like until something's set in stone, we can, take a look at that. So you had sent me the link to the company, and I thought it was very fascinating to see a company like this come to the table for independent filmmakers to offer sort of what they say, it's like a turnkey a marketing solution or a distribution solution. But then when I looked at it closely, I go, that's really interesting. So, we're talking about costs of anywhere from like $10,000, $15,000, like upfront. And we're talking about the difference of something like Distribber and Bitmax, which is anywhere from sometimes $1,000 to $2,500 just to pay the aggregation fee for the quality assurance of your files to be able to be submitted to these platforms like iTunes and Amazon and Crackle and so on. The interesting thing is that a distribution company, because we mentioned this before, it's just the way sometimes a distribution company will work is that you might sign a exclusive with them. So like a distribution company says, all right, we're going to take your film on. Here's a 5-year deal, meaning that we will own the rights to license your film for 5 years. And we're going to lock up, say, domestic rights. That means you have the rights to go out to the international market if you want to see if you can license your film with different people there. This is why you see so many different like production companies or distribution companies kind of pop up on, before a beginning of a movie sometimes. It's a handful of distribution companies plus production companies. Well, make it simple. Say a distribution company offers you a rights deal. They want to license your film for 5 years in the domestic North America. With that, they will then, in the contract sometimes, this is like a boilerplate type thing, they will, a lot of times your film is bundled with other films. It's like, and so then that distribution company and their sales agents that work for the distribution company are then trying to sell a collection of films to all the different outlets and from there, then they get a collection of money back for the bundle, and then they split up, the profits from the bundle. But because of the expenses of them traveling to these places and any marketing expenses they do, like a new poster, a new trailer cut, all these things they do that they think they need to do to get your film ready for the market, or just something that they offer, in-house in the distribution company, they're going to charge that back against your profits. So on average, it's about $10,000, $15,000. That's how much work they go put into it that you won't see until they get their money back. So they're doing all this. So your film, say, eventually makes $15,000 back initially. They're going to take that as an expense. And then you'll wonder, like, wait a minute, I thought we did pretty well, and I'm seeing the numbers, but our cut of it is only, $100 or something. It's because they've got to take that out, which is why working with like a producer's rep that actually is different than a sales agent. So a sales agent sort of like works for a distribution company trying to sell bundles of films to other film buyers. A producer's rep sometimes will just specifically represent a film or a producer and their film to these different companies, kind of like a lawyer sometimes, not lawyer, but it's like they can look over the contract or work with the contract. There's an opportunity to put like a cap on how much money they will charge against your marketing expenses and all the travel expenses and all that kind of stuff. So that way it's not going on and on and on where you never see any money because they just use your profits to help fund all their travels, So it's interesting to see that this particular company you sent me was just like, we're just cutting to the chase. We're either going to take out $10,000, $15,000 from all the effort that we put in, marketing your film, or you just pay us up front. And that's it. It's so, but closely looking at it, this concept of like, what does distribution mean in this digital landscape? Because, all the different platforms could be everything from Hulu, Netflix, YouTube Red, Amazon, and iTunes, and then it's on Google Play, it's on the PlayStation Network, Vudu, and if you can you're working in the world of cable television, so there's, I'm sure there's people you could talk to on the back end of like, how is this content being sold to cable TV providers and so on. So the idea is to get it out there as many places as possible. And with that said, then your file has to be ready, with all the MME tracks and just all the standards ready. So there's that if it gets sold overseas, internationally, they can strip out the audio track and they lay in their foreign language dub track and all the other things. If like there's offensive language, they can switch out, and dub in something that is more appropriate, things like that. And just being a good sort of producer, delivering the finished film in the right way. With that said, it's fascinating because I don't know the answer to your question of like, you could go with this company knowing that's what you're putting out. The two options are, if I pay like distributor and or BitMax a flat fee, a low end of like anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500, I have an opportunity to get our film onto these digital platforms that people see in the domestic, areas. The question is, there is no marketing dollars behind it. It just gets thrown up there. So it can just get lost in the shuffle. So then you can say, well, we were going to pay $10,000, $15,000 to this other company as a flat fee. Could we use this $10,000, $15,000 as our own marketing dollars to control our marketing, knowing that our content is going to be up on these platforms already? So, but then that means more work, more oversight, but you have more control. And looking at this flat fee, it's, one of the things I asked when we were in the email chain is to see, like, is there a list of other filmmakers that have used their services that you can just ask? Like you can find out like on IMDb Pro, like, oh, so this film was used, they use this particular studio or this distribution turnkey system. Can I just ask, like, how was the experience? And I think you had an interesting answer for me. So what was your answer when you found out?
Yeah, I actually asked this distribution company for references. I mean, listen, in television, people are asking me, or actually people are calling me, someone else has listed me as a reference, whether it's for hiring someone or vouching for a company, a production company. And when I asked them for references, they were adamant that they do not give out references because it violates their client, the personal agreements with their clients. And I did some research to see, oh,